I went from working for this company that all I was doing was saying no to people and having the power behind me, to then learning how to build a business with my hands tied behind my back. Like being a boxer and not being able to fight and getting people to work for you for free.
On the 24th episode of Passion in Progress, Andrew Tyler. Tyler has a very cultural and storied background that truly embodies pursuing your passion. By age 25, Tyler was managing a $10 million beverage company under Nobu, a Japanese celebrity chef and restaurateur. Andrew has also spent time in more than 36 countries, including Ghana, where he started a 501c3 called Planting Technology, giving computers to the residents there. He's been a model, day traded crude oil, done real estate, but Tyler's forte was always in restaurants. 8 years ago, Tyler dropped everything that he was doing and moved to Telluride, Colorado, where he opened up his first restaurant called There. Since then, he's opened up a second restaurant in Denver. The remainder of this podcast is actually recorded in that Denver restaurant. But before we get to Tyler's amazing story, I just want to say thank you to all my listeners for their support so far. And if you've been enjoying the show, don't forget to share it out on Twitter, Facebook, and take a screen grab of it. Tag me at Javier Mercedes X and post it to your Instagram stories. And for those of you that are truly fans of this show, thank you so much for writing those reviews on iTunes. Today's iTunes review comes from Gunner3535. Whoa, I can't imagine anyone having anything negative to say about this podcast. Javier is a truly genuine individual making authentic content for no other reason than a love for the grind and the craft. If you don't listen to one episode and naturally click to the next, then I don't know what to tell you. Much love, Javier. Keep doing you. Thank you, Gunnar Michaels. Go check him out on Instagram or YouTube or wherever. He's definitely an OG. He's been down since the beginning. So without further ado, let's take it out to Denver and the restaurant There, founded by Andrew Tyler. What is up, Merce Nation? Javier Mercedes here for yet again another Passion in Progress podcast, where we interview people and what they're passionate about. And hopefully through hearing their stories, you too are motivated and inspired to pursue your own passions. Today we have quite the guest, Andrew Tyler. From talking to you before we began recording, it sounds like the name of this restaurant There has a lot to do with your background and things of that nature. So can you just take me back to wherever you want to in your journey and how you got to here in There? There's so many word plays in there.
Yeah, it never goes bad, man. It's been a long road, man. I'm 38 years old now. So I've been in the restaurant business for 24 years.
You're a veteran at this point, I would
assume.
Yeah,
I'm a veteran. You know, I'm trying to keep the skin young, but it's definitely taken me on this journey, and which ended up arriving, what is at There, which is a business that I started, founded about 8 years ago in December in Telluride, Colorado. So it's just been like this journey kind of building up to it, because the definition of There in my mind is, liking what you do, having arrived. I feel that my quest getting to that spot was kind of on target.
It seems like you have a much cultured background, which I just from talking to you for a brief stint, getting around the world and things of that nature. And you were telling me about how you, at some point in time in your life, you just like packed up and went and did other things, So can you tell me a little bit about that and how it's cultivated how you pursue life nowadays?
Totally. Yeah, I was that guy in college that like the last semester of my senior year took markers out and wrote quotes all over my wall, from people that had inspired me. And then I was just reading a lot of literature and books and nonfiction, which becomes, or fiction, which becomes nonfiction. I've always kind of looked at life that way. And so I've been inspired by a lot of different books and movies and stories. I think that's been a part of the fire to my passions. Yeah, so I was that kid that when you came over my house to come for a party drinking your senior year of college, I was like, hey man, you want to throw something up on the quote board? I won't judge you, I promise. And you could tell like certain people, they had it right away, and they just, they had things that drove them and was the gas to their fire and flame. And then other people were kind of intimidated, by that question and that process. Most of those people ended up going on and getting out of college and we kind of are farmed a little bit. There's a farming in the US of A of going to college and then getting an internship and then getting the job and then buying the real estate And so I had a lot of friends who did that. And my choice was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this system. I packed my bags and went for like a 6-continent stretch.
No way.
Yeah, it was awesome. I didn't even know what gap year was. I didn't know that even existed. That wasn't something that was told or taught to me. It was something that it was just in my bones. I had to go out there and see what else was happening.
Wait, you called it a gap year?
See, you don't even know.
No, I didn't want to. So excited to like tell me what is that?
That's something that like other cultures, it's like built into their system, or people who I guess have a lot of money and know to tell their kids to do that.
Yeah.
Before they send them to college or before they send them to their job, so that they can want it a little more as opposed to just being forced into it.
So is it just something where you go and you just travel the world for a year?
Yeah, I mean, respectively. And I had a benefit. My father was in the airline business, and so part of that, I had saved some cash because I always worked, getting back to the restaurants. I mean, when I was in college, I was an MC in a nightclub, running around before I was even able to drink. I was 20 years old, on a microphone in front of thousands of people in a nightclub, like going, somebody scream, with the thong song and taking CO2 and like turning on like shh, and like like dun, 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 like
Cisco, the through line connecting us all through the thong song.
Now you know how old I am. Oh, I told you that right. Yeah.
That's awesome. So from my standpoint, my dad's from Dominican Republic. I went there when I was like a lot younger, but I was like in diapers, so I didn't really get a cultural shock of any value. But I went when I was in 8th grade, and my dad's half the family lives there. And what's awesome, and however you want to take it, is they work on like the upper echelon resort there. But a lot of my family still has, and this is just the way of life. Like they have the tin roof, they have the dirt floor, they have the chickens in the back that they're going to cook for you like that night. And oh my gosh, their food's so good.
yeah, totally. I'd way rather eat out of a taco cart in a third world country than in this country.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just like, what's cool is seeing the art of them make something, and then getting the smells and the aroma and all that stuff is so good. But in terms of seeing that, it's such an eye-opener in terms of perspective. And coming back to my suburban life in Fort Wayne, Indiana, was like, so like, here I have a 2-story home and I have carpets and I can go down and play normal Nintendo if I want to and all this other stuff. And there it's like, no, you go to school underneath a tree. And you like, that's how life is there,
And that's what I kind of pulled from this trip that I did, and I think you hit it on the nail. It's my greatest awareness was that you got to make your own choices, and there has to be this kind of rebirth from how you grew up. I grew up in a great house. My parents were divorced, but I was able to see the positives and all that, not because they were weird and needed to be divorced, because that wasn't the case. It just was great to be able to get them one-on-one, and I think they maybe gave me more focus when we did hang out. Mm-hmm. But you don't know how much your parents and your friends and your environment bestow on you, and you just kind of follow that trail. And taking that palate cleanser, as I go back to food and restaurant, and going out and seeing how other people live and the choices other people have made, or the environments that other people grow up in, really starts to kind of open up this horizon of how, man, I could just like clean the palate. I always Siddhartha was a great book, and it was all about starving yourself of everything that you thought you needed until you needed nothing, and then you like Phoenix, you wake up and then you decide, what do I actually need for myself? And so that trip was kind of the eye opener for my journey to come.
Pursuing what you're doing now, because this isn't your first restaurant, correct?
No, this is number 2.
Number 2. How did you come up with the harebrained idea of like, I'm gonna do a restaurant?
When I got back from my trip, I felt like I could see the world happening in front of me, but I still was like hanging out in restaurants, and I actually started with a company called Nobu in South Beach, Florida, and I was like when my career as a restaurant person kind of really started. It's all the way along I was doing stuff, but when I started working there, I started to see that this is like a real profession if you took it that way. Mm-hmm. Just because of the detail, the orientation, the clients, and the staff. I mean, it was really an exceptional standard of quality that I was like, here I had graduated with my marketing degree, and I was telling my boss in the restaurant, well, I have a marketing degree, and he's like, well, I don't care. I'm a college kid, and he's like, well, I don't care. And it was just squatting everything that you thought you needed in life to then have to start over and start fresh and dig deep inside yourself and realize what you needed to do, which was be better than the next guy, work harder than the next guy, to be better than the next guy. And so I called that guy my sensei, because he really taught me that there were no excuses. It was really how you work. It's your process. Mm-hmm. And so developing my process or my kung fu or whatever it was, and then getting an opportunity in New York City with the Nobu company to, be running a $10 million beverage program by the time I was 25 years old.
That's crazy. What is Nobu because I don't know what that is.
No, that's cool. Nobu's a Japanese Peruvian chef who partnered with Robert De Niro. Okay. So a very celebrated chef. He's got 23 restaurants in prominent cities all over the world, partners like in China with Jackie Chan, He
knows his stuff.
The Mexican mafia in Mexico. Yeah.
A lot of the listeners are probably like, Javier, stop acting stupid.
Yeah. No, whatever. But it was just, it was a cool gig, and it opened my eyes to see something that I would normally think of restaurants as just, something that you could travel and you could go to different cities and pop into different environments and cultures and just like pick up a gig, And so it really kind of changed from having a gig, what was a gig, and being good at that service, to then a career. Working with that company for 8.5 years gave me the confidence to say, I can do this. This is, why don't I just do this? I'm actually really good at this. And let's, and being in love with traveling, it was all about like going to these different cultures and environments and learning the pros and cons of ways of living, the goods and the bads, and then kind of taking them with you on your on your satchel and going to the next place. And just like every city is like a school and learning how to live and learning the people and the environment. And so that's what gave me the confidence to kind of leave this really awesome job in New York City working for this enormous company that it was just, my career was set. I mean, I look back at those guys and I'm like, why did I do this? They're all like really taken care of, and they've got a lot of power behind them. One of the things that actually helped me with this move on my own was when I was working for the company and I was still in love with traveling. By the time I was 26, I had, conquered 32 countries, and just sometimes spending months at a time in places, and other times, going through quickly. I was in New York and working for this. I was kind of underqualified to be 25, working for a $10 million beverage program, overseeing 3 restaurants, and so when you're underqualified, you're a little insecure, and everything is just like, you're very rash. Mm-hmm. and I was, but I also was the hardest working guy in show business, and I was able to use that to my advantage. But I think at some point, and I think like every person should look at years of their life like chapters in their book, and like you should take a year of your life and be an asshole. I'm serious, because you'll learn how to do that and how to be that person, and then how to talk to that person, and you can get in that person's shoes. But then you got to realize, like, I got to switch this up, and I gotta make a circle around, a full circle of human. I had that chapter, and it was good, and I learned a lot, and it's given me my backbone. So when I need to get down with some stuff, like I can access that.
That's crazy.
I started traveling again, and I went to Africa, and I wanted to do work, like 501c3 work. And I was looking up all this work on the internet, like, hey, what can I do? And everyone was like charging me to do it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And I said, I'm just going to go buy a one-way ticket. I bought a one-way ticket to Senegal, and I ended up, going to Timbuktu, Burkina Faso, Ghana. And I was in Ghana after a well-traveled Africa guy for a month. And I ran into Habitat for Humanity while I was literally hitchhiking in the middle of nowhere underneath a cloth. This van with like all these windows shows up with just white people, and I'm like, who are you guys? Long story short, I ended up negotiating to just offer my services to build homes with them. They wanted to have me sign all this paperwork and do insurance, and I was like, nah, man, I just want to like build homes. And they were like, well, you gotta like, you gotta like pay us. And I was like, actually, I'm also a writer for the New York Times, and I'm doing a story about, corruption going down into nonprofit organizations in West Africa.
I'm assuming you were BSing.
They called me the next day and said, okay, we have a village for you. You need to pay for your own food, and then you can help build with these people. And I did that. Rounding this story off, as I told you, everything's a little bit of a circle. I ended up doing the build and staying in the village. I was the first person to actually live inside the village while everyone bussed in from a hotel. And when I was leaving, the chief said to me, I said, if there's anything I could bring back, is there anything you'd want me to bring back if I were to come see you again? Come visit me in New York, Mm-hmm. And he goes, the guy looked at me dead face with his hand out and said, computers. And I said, oh, really? The reason I'm telling you this story is because this goes to my next chapter in my book, which is when I got back to New York and people were like, how was Africa? I was like, oh, it was awesome. My hair was all grown out. I had a big beard, and I was like, looked like a homeless person. It was awesome. And I was on 57 between 5 and 6, serving people who were spending $185 for a seat at the bar. And they were like, would you ever go back? And I was like, yeah, if I had computers. Within 1 year, went back and, started this 501c3 and started a nonprofit, over 5,000 kids in Africa using computers we brought over, 3 villages. And so I went from working for this company that all I was doing was saying no to people and having the power behind me, to then learning how to build a business with my hands tied behind my back. Like being a boxer and not being able to fight, and getting people to work for you for free. And getting people to work for you and donate and so it really gave me the strength, because anyone can be hired for like the high end position and just walk around all smitty and be like, bah, 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 like that's like you didn't build that. You're working for somebody else's thing, and you're in a big powerful position, and you're just running around saying no. And so I think that the nonprofit organization really allowed me to get the confidence of being able to still motivate people without having the power.
The fact that you have the well-roundedness of being an asshole and then like completely flipping it around, but it also sounds like you're good on your feet. Is that it sounds like you want to throw yourself into the biggest challenge that you can find at any point in time, and then just like find a way to prosper.
That's interesting you say that. 1 year, my dad gave me a book for Christmas that was titled "Comfortable with Uncertainty."
Is that? I'm assuming you kind of live by that now.
I was like, Dad, what the hell is this? I'm not gonna read this. I was mad.
Yeah. I just want to continue on your path. Like, where did you go from there?
I was day trading crude oil, and I got my commercial real estate license.
Because that's the right. That's just like, I love it, man.
And right before I did my fundraiser for the nonprofit, I had just gotten back from Dubai. I was following some guy there who told me he had Sheikh Mansour's money and wanted to build a $650 million plot in Herald Square. And he told me once in a conversation like 2 months earlier that he was going to be in Dubai during this time. And I was like, I'll see you there. And I just showed up and I called him. I was like, hey, I'm here. And well, he didn't pick up.
Did you have a good time anyway?
Oh, it was fantastic. I ended up at some conference and made a bunch of deals, and Nobu had a restaurant out there, so I was able to stay in Atlantis. And I think what I'm getting at is being able to just be conscious of your coincidences and kind of create this power inside of you that knows as a traveler, I was able to go everywhere and just kind of like adapt. And that's a lot of how my life has lived. And I think that the restaurant business has been really great for that. Because I consider the restaurant business like church. It's like my church. It's you're only as good as your congregation. Who are the people that are showing up, and what are they doing, and what are they getting into, and how can we, be humans and create this community and work together, and et cetera.
So if somebody walked through the doors right now looking for a job, would you look higher towards somebody that's well-traveled versus somebody that has a marketing degree?
I don't think it matters. I think I almost go quicker to the guy who doesn't have a resume.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and can just look me in the eyes and talk straight and share with me, his human capability. And I think that willing and able is more important than anything. And people who are like, hey, I want to do this right now in my life and I want to be really good at it. Can you teach me? Like, yeah, sure. Like, to me, the new master's is the GED. It's like going and finding somebody that motivates you and inspires you and who you want to work for. And if you're, because the only thing that we know is constant is time. Time is the only thing that we know keeps ticking. And so don't waste your time. Make sure that everything you're doing, you're going out and pulling from something or somebody, taking something that's making your, creating more tools on your belt so that when the floor drops, you're good. and that's just kind of been the way I've lived my life.
In terms of time and your perspective of it, you at 25 years old in New York versus you now, how do you perceive time or the value of it?
Things change when, so I've always been this go anywhere, do anything guy. In fact, every time I would just drop at a nickel, where the weather suits my clothes, thank you, Harry Nilsson. I lived by you for a long time. No, and I think that I reached a certain point in my life where, the go anywhere, do anything, or I could, do anything tomorrow wasn't that exciting anymore. In fact, it was the same. Even though I was doing all these different things and going all these places, my life was a pattern. And so it came a funny time when I finally decided, look, I'm doing all these things and I'm kind of good at them, but I'm not like the best. When I went to Telluride, Colorado, and just saw this landscape and saw this town, this community that was just, I fell in love with, and it just stopped me. And that's when I started laying my first roots, and I started creating commitments. My whole life was the no committal thing, and I was like, it was a big fear. It was very, for a guy who just wanted to fly all the time and then started putting roots down, and I couldn't go anywhere. I had to see this thing through. That's when I opened my first restaurant. I had to see it through, and I started learning, wow, like I could take all these things I've learned and like focus, and it kind of eliminated, my mind from just going scatterbrain and just saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to put all my energy into it. And I just, then from that day forth, I fell in love with commitment. And so I no longer was attracted to the woman who was like, yeah, I can do anything. I'm going here next week. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you want to do? And anyone who didn't have that answer, I was completely unattracted to, as opposed to before I was like, great, let's do it, And so I'm getting to be older now, and I think a lot of that happened when I started biting off into my first commitments and saying, this is what it is. And then next thing you know, I got married, and that was another commitment. And next thing you know, I'm opening the second restaurant. That was another commitment. Next thing you know, I'm having a child, which is another commitment. And now it's like, to me, that's how I've arrived, and that's why the restaurant, one of the reasons why the restaurant's called There, it's liking what you do and just saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to stick to this. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it's perfect, because getting back to, I think this kind of through line of just throwing yourself into situations, like you said, you got into this pattern, and it's the uncertainty. And then the new challenge was, well, what happens if I'm settled in a spot for X amount of time? How do I build something from the ground up
Yeah.
And then I'm not going off to different places. Like, I'm devoted to this thing.
Yeah, there's no running away, and your track record remains. And so like you've got to, that's when you just, in my experience, had to really dig deep. It's been when I've made these commitments and I've not worked for somebody else, it's a grind. and that's when the real work kicks in. But the best part about the real work, I graduated with a marketing degree, right? And the one thing I learned from that was I personally couldn't sell something that I didn't 100% believe in. And I was like, so what am I going to do? And that's when I went out and was like, what am I going to create? What am I going to make? And so when you own a business or start something from scratch, when something's not right, it's your fault. Whether it's the training of your employees or whether it's, like, all the employees in Denver are terrible. No, that's not the case. You can't train them, And so it really, the work just topples over you. And it's interesting how much you can learn from just doing one thing, as simple as, having a restaurant. You end up getting into...
I don't think having a restaurant is a simple thing, but...
Well, yeah. Well, you do everything. It's marketing, it's accounting, it's advertising, it's legal, it's real estate. It's, if you could have the best restaurant concept in the world. If you don't make a good real estate deal, you're dead. It's been an enormous road. And it was my idea. I kind of jumped off the wagon in New York City, but a lot of it has to do with, as I've gotten older, it was always like any person that was doing anything close to me, I didn't want to read their book. I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want it to affect what it is that I was doing. Because I wanted to, my ego was grand and I wanted to do something based on, my response to the industry or whatever like that. And as I've gotten older, I realized that it's all about synergy and finding incredible people to work with that are around you. I'm so blessed to have, my business partners, Enrique Margulies and Oren Cohen and my chef Ben Knaus, that now you're taking on these other personalities who have all had their way of arriving where we are today. We could take each one of those people and sit them down, and you could hear, a smidgen of a story like I'm telling about how we all get to where we are. Think about how much I have to bring to the table versus these other people. And then when you start bringing them all together, it's incredible what you can accomplish.
You're just as good as like the 5 people that you surround yourself with in the room or whatever that quote is. But it sounds like in terms of holding yourself accountable, and the other people that you are pursuing to work with are all on the same level, and you are all pushing each other to prosper in what you guys want to do. When you embarked on doing your own restaurant, and and you were telling me about this place, like building it from the ground up, like I just want to hear like the behind the scenes story of that,
Yeah, totally. So I went to Telluride once to visit when I was working with Nobu. And being, a pretty highly paid guy. And I was just kind of like been in New York for 6 years and I love traveling and I always had this affinity for the mountains. And when I showed up there, I just was like, what? And I quit my job of 9 years and was working there living there in Telluride 5 weeks later, and 2.5 months later had the first restaurant. So it was very much like my manifest, and like when I get something in my head, it's like I gotta do it, and I just drive. And like you said, just giving yourself a new obstacle. And so I knew one person in the town, a really great gentleman who's got a really funny, quirky character who has a restaurant there, and he was one of our clients from New York City, and he's the one who kind of got me out there. And said, hey, let's open this, restaurant or this bar he wanted right next to his restaurant because he had people waiting outside the door. He was the only guy I knew in Telluride, and I moved out there, and within 2.5 months, he was no longer my business partner. I was still like pretty fast and sharp New York City guy, and he was laid back and a lot older gentleman. And we were on different wavelengths. And I was giving up this enormous career to come and do this, and he kind of had ideas of how it was going to be done, and I was like, no, like this is my life, like it's got to go down like this. And so we parted ways, and I felt alone. That I have a thing back there in the kitchen that says "so it goes." It was one of those things. I felt like I came to a town, I didn't know anybody, and I stripped down and got naked and was like, so what do you guys think? and of course I met people quickly, and got people to, get a part of what we were doing. And I had my business partner, Enrique Margulies, who's very helpful in the beginning, and a great leader on the phone, to help us, kind of structure things. But I guess I don't know, man. I don't know what the solution is. I came in hot and hard and fast, and everywhere I went, I was riding a 36-inch red bike or had a yellow buggy. I was just trying to create as much attention to what we were doing and that it was going to be different.
That's cool.
And in the beginning, I felt like there was a lot of kind of hatred by the younger population in the town. It's a very small town. And I felt like because I was the thing that separated I think our space from every other space was a little bit of the New York swag and the attention to detail and stuff. But I think most of it was like the amount of work that we did, and like I said, I think where I've gotten is just working harder than everybody else around me, and I think that people didn't like that because I was kind of raising the bar, and for the industry and people. And because I could work harder, I could get away by saying more things, that might catch people off guard. And then I think people started to see, that it was all for the positive. I really wanted to create just a more positive experience, for folks.
Yeah, I'm assuming a lot of the getting done kind of attitude was a part of that.
Yeah, it got me in, I think like having passion, is this incredible force of fire that you can go and do everything, but you can also burn yourself up, because what ends up happening is when you are a guy who's operated in the way that I have, you only can really check in with yourself. And so that's part of the growth thing that I'm talking to you about, is like all my challenges as I've grown in this industry, or this travel, this journey of mine, this serendipitous thing that I've done, letting go of that and not knowing that, yes, who I am has gotten me to where I am today, but like now I can start listening to other people and have more security, as opposed to having that fire and burning people that get close to you and actually trying to help. And so that's kind of where I am now, and I'm working on it, still to this day, because when you have passion and you wear it on your sleeve and you're running around, you can really help someone or really hurt someone.
In terms of people, can you talk about when you went, because you were talking about you were loud and proud when you went in there and you wanted to do the things your way. Can you talk about just the market in general and how you coming into that place, you wanting to do your things your way and make your mark? How was that from the beginning to like where you're at now?
I think it might have been a little intimidating just because of, I was on 57 between 5 and 6 in New York City running, enormous organizations with 55 employees, and there wasn't any room for, and also the New York City is just so fast and hard. And so coming there, I think people just maybe took it the wrong way. And then I think over time, I got to meet these people and they could see that I was just, like a regular guy, but it's just like, what was my training? The town kind of helped me kind of fade off a little bit. I think everyone who goes from the East Coast to the West Coast, it's just like a different mentality. And everyone has a story of like being hazed by West Coast kids, especially when it comes to like athletic experiences. Like on the East Coast, they'll be like, are you sure, man? Do you want to do this? On the West Coast, like, yeah, man, it'll be no problem. Just, right around, yeah. Oh, is this a good out? Yeah, that's fine. Just right around the corner, we'll be fine. And then like you're like clawing on the hill because they're putting you through this thing, and they're kind of like chuckling because you came in like you were all big and bad, and now they're actually like the most respectable, incredible athletes there are. And they're super humble, and the humility, and it's kind of like a joke. And so a little bit of that kind of helped bring me down, you know, a little bit, and have a lot of respect for the choices that people made in the town to live a more relaxed life and not, you know, make work their priority.
Yeah.
But I think that I've always thought in my mind, going back to the time issue, and I struggle with this, and this was always been part of my philosophy when I'm going out and finding employees and stuff. It's like, hey man, you know, like I can ski too, and I love skiing, and let's go shred. But you know, you work over there, and how many hours a week do you work at that job to get money to buy your skis? Oh, well, I work 40 hours a week. Cool. How many hours a week do you spend with your girlfriend who you say you love? Do you spend 40 hours? You know, because right now you're actually allocating most of your time to that job, but you don't even like it. So what are you doing? You know, like you're wasting your time. And so that's been a lot of what I projected on people and try to cast people who would love the work that they're doing. And in our particular restaurant, we make people work harder than any other spot. And so if you don't like the work, there's no way you're going to be here. You just go around the street and work somewhere else because you don't have to do half the things that we ask you to do. But we empower you by that process. So that's more of like the attitude that I've received from, you know, hiring people and staffing people. As far as the community is concerned, yeah, just time, you know, you know, time, you know, continuing to do what you do, and people respecting for the fact that you actually are an individual and you're not cracking, you know, you're sticking to your guns and you're holding your philosophies, and people are then adapting to you as well. And being like, you know what, like people start to respect the fact that you didn't just come in and do what everybody else was doing. And they actually start seeing the work and that you're, you know, you're grinding away and that it's authentic. And then they, you know, say, well, respect this guy. And, you know, it happens slowly. It's not overnight.
Like building an audience and also consistency. Like just like having consistency in anything. I feel like once people see that you're consistently doing something, they're like, man, all right, I thought this was kind of a joke at the beginning, but like,
exactly.
No, he's this like,
doesn't stop. Yeah, here he goes again. And then, you know, yeah, exactly. And then people are just like, well, I guess that's just that guy, you know, like, and yeah, agreed, man. I think that you just have to hold on. I think that when you come and try to do something very different and you're AKA teaching people something new that they're not used to, it's very expensive. And it's
not even from a monetary value as well. I think it's also the time that you're talking about.
The mental capacity, you know, time and your own mentality, like fighting and bringing something new to the market or doing something different than what people are used to is it's really tough. But if you can, you know, succeed at it, then you've now created this thing and you're now a landmark for this new feeling that wasn't evoked prior to you arriving.
It's awesome. It's like now, I like how you use landmark. That's cool. It's like if people go to that city, it's like, yes, let's check it out.
Yeah, like if you want to come celebrate and have a good time, you come to this restaurant. And I think getting into the philosophy of the restaurant is pretty interesting because leaving such a quality, you know, atmosphere in New York City, and I felt like restaurants, a lot of what was happening was quality and pretension were happening simultaneously. And I think that, you know, a lot of these restaurants are similar in that respect, and they're all trying to outdo each other. And there became this kind of like snobbish behavior. And we wanted to eliminate that pretension. And our menu is a comic book. I mean, that was the idea. It's to be playful. It's to be intimate. It's to remind people why they're going out in the first place is to have a good time. If you're going to go and give your money to somebody else, you better leave laughing and smiley, you know, like, and it just seemed like the timing of the industry got into this whole critic game of everyone going out and judging, you know, spending all this money going out and judging, and then half the times leaving a place being upset. Man, what is that about? And so, yeah, almost 8 years ago, we really wanted to create more of a playful environment where I think people would never forget.
Yeah, speaking of environment, tell me about this place and how you were telling me earlier about how you literally made everything in here.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. We it was hard to raise money. When we were coming out to this second restaurant, it was just a hard time for people to give money to a restaurant. Restaurant's not really the greatest investment for a financial thing, and a lot of times people want to invest in a restaurant that they can come down the street. None of our investors live in Denver.
That's crazy.
We just felt it made most sense. We could get in the car and drive 6 hours, or get on a plane if we needed to in an hour and be in Telluride. But we wanted to do a bigger project like this, but we raised money for something that was maybe a little bit smaller. So we again created an obstacle.
I love it. I love it, man.
Create an obstacle. With all these different things, and just here we go. Let's get as much as we can out of what we got, and we bit off a pretty big lease for what we had, and permitting was tough. There's a lot of construction in Denver right now, a lot of things going on, and based on the environment we picked, we got this beautiful glass place, and we just started looking at what people were charging for construction and what was going on, and we were behind on permitting, and even getting people to show up for the job to give you bids was tough. I got Google software, Google SketchUp. It's a free drawing program, and drew this space, sat in here on the floor with a ruler, and not a ruler, but what do you call those things? A tape, and took all the measurements and just like dreamed this thing up and constructed it in 3D.
Crazy, man. That's so. For those that are just listening, it's no small feat. Like if you look around here, it looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was cool, and to be able to do that, I always took drawing, classes like for just hand drawing stuff. But then this was like a program that I was able to kind of get, and then just really got further detailed on it, and then we started taking pictures of the drawing and putting in dimensions of all this stuff, the back bar and of all the things that we designed, and we were sending it out to people to get quotes, and the quotes were coming back, and we're just sitting here like in the space waiting for quotes to come back. And then I looked over at my partner Oren Cohen and was like, dude, do you want to just try to build this thing? Let's just go buy some saws and get this going. And we were going to start building some of it. He said to me, I want the bar. I'm going to build the bar. And I was like, really? And I looked over at my business partner Enrique. I was like, he wants to build the bar? And Enrique's like, let's let him do it, man. He's passionate about it. He's excited about it. I'd rather have him do it than hire somebody else. And so we all conclusively made that decision. And once we started taking on this challenge, it was like everything else was nothing. I just feel like life is all about just taking on as many challenges as you can, and then learning from everything, and then cutting people out. I mean, now when we go to build the next restaurant, I don't think we're going to build it like we did this one, but we'll know exactly what it cost to do it. And we know what we'll be paying them more, and maybe we will want to do it. I mean, it was a lot of fun. But we did it because we didn't have enough money, and we wanted to create something that could be iconic. And so we took this space that was more than what we were asking for. And it's not always success, man. We had, that was a grocery store next door. We had a 600 item grocery store where we were creating 85 food SKUs. Yeah, we had, I mean, oh man,
So what you're talking about, for those that are just listening, is the place over there where the refrigerator is. That was a separate entity at the time.
Yeah.
And then you guys knocked down the wall.
No.
Okay.
We designed and built it to where it could open up together and we could do things together. That turns into a stage. This is a 110 inch by 110 inch wall that's on a cantilever that kind of opens and closes. So that just closes.
Wow!
Yeah.
I didn't even see. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, we wanted to build something that was convertible space, something that, hey, we don't know what we're going to do next door, but we're going to do it. And then if that becomes a problem, or we start getting more success over here, then we can open it up and do what we did, which is offer it as a private event space. Really trying to start to learning from all of our past experiences. And like in Telluride, our entire restaurant is 32 seats, a 10-person standing table, the kitchen, the walk-in fridge, the ADA bathroom is 750 square feet.
That's crazy.
The entire restaurant. And so we've outgrown it. We would love more seats, but we don't want to get a big space because we want to keep it intimate, but we want to be able to have options to grow into. And so we had a grocery store for a year. and we wanted to brand products and create things that we could, we were creating sauces and jams and we wanted to create things that we could sell to Whole Foods, and start marketing our company like that. Yeah, it didn't work. So we had to know there wasn't enough foot traffic in the neighborhood, and we had to know when to pull the trigger and when to relieve the passion, because the passion keeps you fighting every day. And we were doing so many different things, but you've got to know when to escape. And so we had, of course, backup plans when we took this space, anyways. And now we have a better benefit for this restaurant because we're starting to grow.
Let's dive into the passion. Like if you're pursuing something and then it's just like you keep hitting a wall. And can you tell me that point when you were at where you were like, you know what, I need to step back and then I need to go in this direction, where pivoting from where you thought you were going to end up?
Well, it takes a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion, a lot of, you have business partners and everyone has an idea of how things are going, and then you have certain people who will pass the baton to someone else, and they'll see it through to the next level because one person's like, I'm going to focus on this, you can go do that. And then when that guy's ready to pass the baton back, everyone's like, hey, you know what? We all gave this a shot. Like, let's just call it, and it's a group decision, and that's one of the best things about having partners, because you get fired up about something, you don't want to see something go. And we were able to, instead of that affecting our entire business and putting us in jeopardy of losing everything, we were able to alleviate it. And then, you got to move fast, you got to think fast, you got to know when to make changes. And that's part of, being an entrepreneur, is, and we literally, closed the market, and within 6 weeks had that room and we did all the work ourselves.
Love it. Just like straight up pivoting and then
Yeah.
creating new opportunity.
And now we're doing this thing, and so I think that you always need to have some flexibility to what it is you're doing, especially, given the different environments. Telluride was a super playful place with people who were coming to celebrate all the time, 7 days a week. We came to Denver and it's a different clientele. And, you come here with an expectation of what you want to do, who you are, and then a year goes by and you're like, man, we've got to make some changes. Again, how long do you stick to what it is that you want to do before you bury yourself? And that's a pitfall from having passion and loving what you do and only doing what you do for the reason of doing it. I didn't get in the restaurant business to make a bunch of money. I got in the restaurant business because I was in it. I saw a remedy to what I thought was a ongoing problem. That's why I did this. That's why I wanted to, start this company. And then you get older, you have kids, and and then you're like, oh, it's not about me anymore, my life, and you get different perspectives, and then it's great. And so you start learning different things, and you got to know when to, pivot.
One of the last questions that I ask everybody on the podcast is, in your craft that you are right now, if there was somebody starting off, say they just got their marketing degree or whatever, and they want to pursue what you have done in life, what would you tell them?
The restaurant business?
Just like wherever you're at in life, man, what wisdom could you bestow on a younger version of yourself?
Keep your eyes open and have a big heart.
I think that's the most concise, best answer I've gotten so far. And I think it speaks towards a lot of what you've talked about, being able to pivot when you want to pivot and be able to pursue and see things through when you want to see them through, especially like what you were talking about with your first restaurant and all that stuff. But then when you came here, being able to do what you need to succeed. It's awesome, man.
I think a lot of what we went through, this exercise today was helpful for me, because it's just, I think a lot of times people don't know how you arrived where you are. And I think that it's hard out here, and you got people coming in who are like mechanics, who are like critics of your restaurant.
That's an interesting fact. Yeah. So dive into that, man.
I think that people should be checked. I think it's an important thing. Like, people should, my service wasn't good or whatever they want to do. Like, I think there's ways to do that, but I just think that it's you can't really feed too much into that, because these people, if someone was in your industry and was a proven person and had, done something, then you should really absorb that information, because they have enough to go on. This millennial crew is, I don't know if they've earned it yet. And I think, you know, when they get a little older, they may be a little ashamed. But I think they're great. I'm learning a lot from the millennials. I got social media going.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really tough time in the business. And I think that there's kind of like a bubble that's bursting with restaurants and bars right now. And so I think that it's important to I think the way to kind of feel people out is to find out how they got where they are. Is it a passion project? Is it a heart? Because that's kind of what it used to be. And now it's this like corporate conglomerates just popping things up left and right, you know, like that make it feel like it's authentic and make it feel like it's like this passion project. And it's not. And that's why our restaurant runs with the employees and the intimacy and the standards that it does. And you don't get that relationship, you know, when you go to someone who's just taking your order.
Getting to the millennial thing, how important do you think people interaction is in terms of work?
So we are in the people business. Mm-hmm. Without the people, we're no good. It's the people you work with and it's the people you serve. Like I said earlier, the congregation, you know, and I think that it's really important that I don't like the media now as far as like what they do for restaurants. I think it's a lot of lists. And no one's telling the real story, and that's why I like this kind of podcast thing.
You get a longer time to tell your story.
Yeah, and I think this story was a little bit more about me and my journey, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because I wanted to captivate, you know, following your passion
Mm-hmm.
and kind of ending here. Our space in general, and the menu is a little complicated when people see it. When people walk in here, they hear, oh, it's a great restaurant. They come in, they look at it, it's like a bar, and they kind of, it's new to them. Like they kind of get freaked out. And then our success is built on one of our persons going over to the table and kind of like explaining to them where they are and what they're doing. And I think that interaction is what enables us to be better than the next guy. I think that's why the longer our restaurants are around, the greater we get. Like there's a lot of flash in the pans out there, but ours is all about staff. It's all about people connection. It's all about community. And we'll take you on your first date. We'll take you on your second date. We'll get you to move in with us, and then we'll be married to you. Because once you see how much we are invested in this program, I think that you're captivated by it.
Getting to your notes about social media, I can't compare too much, but in terms of the more videos and content that you put out, the more time people can spend with you and actually get to know what you're about. Getting back to consistency, I think is kind of the king in the content space. But in terms of social media, treating it as if you're interacting with a person as opposed to a massive cell phones or like just like a whole conglomerate of like, I don't know, whatever the internet is.
Yeah.
Like a one-on-one interaction. If like somebody says something on a post, like responding to them in a way.
Yeah.
And the same thing here. It's like, well, if you come in and if people are giving you their time, which I can tell you value very much, I'm assuming that they will get the exact amount of like respect and everything from their time here.
Yeah.
And attention. I must have hit a chord.
No, it's look. I all I want to do is create more awareness for. I think it's important that people understand how difficult things are. You know, the restaurant business is you walk in and you don't have a cook. You don't have a dishwasher. You don't have a, you know, the plumbing breaks. You know, like every day there's these incredible challenges, and yes, you can thoughtfully compare one restaurant who's got the same problems to another restaurant who's got the same problems, and that's okay. But like, I just think that some people throw slander around, like, and they haven't done a damn thing in their entire lives. And they should really, you know, and I can't say that I didn't do that when I was young. Mm-hmm. You know, and so what point do you learn? And I could be ashamed of things that I did when I was young, you know, because you don't know. But at what point are you, you know, considering all the elements? And I think that's why I turned to the media a little bit about like getting people to actually see what it takes. I mean, for every in Denver, in the last 4 years, 300 restaurants open a year, 100 close.
That's crazy.
When you open a restaurant, you raise a bunch of money from people and then you close. You're in debt. You're like, your life could be, really screwed. And so it's a passion project.
It's a big risk,
yeah,
but the reward is there as well. But it sounds like you're in it for all of the right reasons.
I'm in it I love to work. I love grinding. I've always been, I've been a very competitive, athlete, and people, man, is like the best. People, I'm an extensive traveled guy, and people say, where was your favorite place you ever been? It's like, no, man, it's the guy I met or the girl I met in that place. That's what makes, you could take everything away. Again, there's time and people. Like, you see all these like Tom Cruise movies from the future and stuff, and like, guess what? There's people, and they've got to live next to each other, and they're humans, and they're working together, and those are the two things that are pretty constant. And so I want to be a people person. I want to have an incredible community that we can kind of pull together, especially here in Denver. Like, I want to highlight these beautiful people who are doing incredible stuff to kind of take this city to the next level. And so that's what we want to be in this restaurant, is that place where people can come and bump into other people who are doing awesome stuff and be like, hey, have you met this guy? I think that's why we're doing it, and the love of the game. I mean, who doesn't love food?
I love that being a people person, you're in one of the biggest like people person industries, like especially in today's day and age of like people on their cell phones, people watching TV, staying at home, Netflix and chilling and all that type of stuff. Like, you're in an industry where, like you said, you're getting them to come out and have your food.
Man, I got to tell you, I started this thing by telling you I was been in the restaurant business for 24 years. Restaurants that was never cool. And like, it's funny to see this thing happening the way that it is now. It's almost like, it's so beautiful to see all these entrepreneurs, with the breweries and the coffee shops and the restaurants, and like that in the last 10 years has been such a cool thing. 5 years, I mean, it's just exploding. But it's kind of thinning out the quality, I think. Because you have guys who work for good people, and then they go to another place and they're the only person who's really good, and then they try to build the staff. And I think that it's thinned it out a little bit, where that's why these restaurants are closing. And now it's cool, man. And it's like, look, we've been doing this a long time, and that's part of the reason why our concept is what it is. We say we're #post-cool. We've already lived in New York City and been the coolest kids on the block, and now like we know what that took. That took like kind of putting up walls and being smarter than people, and like, quality pretension and playing that game. And now we're just like, it doesn't matter if you're a lot of people go out looking for stuff, and it's like, no, man, come out with the people that you love and enjoy the spaces that you go to, and whether it's here or somewhere else, like, stop looking,
It's about the people that you're with.
And I think, it's, exactly. And I think that the older you get, the more you realize that no matter, the party is you, and where you go, you are the party, as opposed to like, hey, who's here? Like,
that's such a great concept. Yeah.
It's
for
like,
sure.
We're now older guys, who have been doing this for a long time. And we just want to enjoy the people we're with.
Thank you again. Where can people find you, or, do you want to give the address of the place here in Denver?
Sure. 3254 Navajo Street. It's a beautiful building called Lumina. You could see it from the highway. It's
you guys are smack dab like right in the middle of Denver.
Yeah. If you read some of the neon on the building, you'll notice that one of them says Italian food. We do not have Italian food here. It's like New American food. But if you ask about the Italian food, you'll get like a special price.
You heard it here first. Passion Progress Podcast.
Definitely follow us on there.denver or there.telluride. And we're about to announce another branding Instagram where we're going to have all kinds of fun stuff, kind of, playing into the arrival and being there and getting there and looking for it and finding what it is that you love. And we're going to have that coming out soon, also with, branding and apparel and maybe a book.
There you go, man. Love it. Well, got a snippet of the story here in this like little hour that we got to spend with you, which is awesome. I can't wait. If you want to follow me, I'm at Javier Mercedes X on Instagram and all the other things. And if you want to support the podcast, don't forget to leave a review on iTunes, or you could just subscribe on YouTube. Thank you so much for your time, Andrew. This has been amazing, and I loved hearing your story. If you enjoyed this episode of Passion in Progress with Javier Mercedes and got value out of what you've heard today, please consider sharing this episode out with a friend. Share it via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and tag me at Javier Mercedes X. That's Javier Mercedes X. I love reading what people have to say about the podcast, and reading your feedback is what makes this podcast better. Thank you, and go out and pursue your passion.